Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Astro Consciousness channel. I'm Millie, and I am here to give you your forecast for the week of February 17th to the 23rd. So, we are still under the influence of the full moon in Leo, which took place on February 12th and was an interesting full moon because I think that it brought up a lot of things for a lot of people. In true Leo fashion, there was a bit of flair, there was a bit of drama. At least I noticed it, right? And I don't mean like full-blown drama, but it was really interesting to observe people's reactions or responses to certain things. My video of that full moon in Leo activated a few people, not very many, but it was really interesting for me to observe the astrology happening in real time because some of the responses that I got in the comments, I thought to myself, wow, this is astrology happening in real time. These are very, very Leo-like comments, right? That were a little reactionary because of certain triggers that people had. And to me, um, as someone who has a natal moon in Leo with an exact square to Pluto in Scorpio, I understand big feelings. I understand that sometimes people feel to a degree that the rest of the world may not understand or may not seem to understand and hold. So again, it was something very interesting for me to observe, and welcome with humor because it is what it is, right? Okay, so as we move into this week, it's interesting because this is a week where the conjunction between the North Node in Pisces and Neptune are really at an all-time high. And this has been the case really for the entire month of February. We have really felt the elevation of consciousness that I've been talking about for weeks now. What I have seen people attempt to do is to approach that which they cannot understand through logic and try to find really concrete answers to something in their life that is asking them to approach it from a place of faith, from a place of trust. And those concepts to a lot of people are still very ethereal or just non-existent, right? Pisces is an energy that doesn't lend itself very well to the very 3D materialistic world we live in. And by materialistic, I don't just mean, capitalistic consumption. That's not what I mean at all. I mean that we live in a world in which a large percentage of the population still believes that all there is to this human existence is this human existence and what is before them, right? There is no openness to anything beyond that. And there's no judgment on that. I think everyone is on their own journey. And I think that with enough openness, I think there is this question of, or everyone does get to this question of, is this all there is, right? In some way, shape, or form. And it varies from person to person and their own experience. So I want to make that clear because, again, it's not a matter of judgment, it's just a matter of understanding from an astrological perspective. And those of us that are open to this perspective, there's an elevation of consciousness that's happening. For those of us who have this tool or any other esoteric tool, right? We can say, I don't fully understand it, but I come back to myself and I do my best to try and remain present and see where this is trying to lead me. And with that, take note as to how difficult that might even be for you, right? And so if it's difficult for you and you have tools like astrology, imagine how difficult it must be to reconcile what is inevitably happening at a collective energetic level for those that only see through the lens of a very 3D material reality. It's a really difficult thing to reconcile in the mind, but also in the body, because I think our bodies are processing so much of what's happening. Our nervous systems are, I believe genuinely that our nervous systems are being affected and activated, right? Which can cause some of our triggers to really be at the forefront of our awareness, at the forefront of our nervous system. And the reason that I want to mention these things is that, again, we're moving into a week where Neptune North Node conjunction in Pisces is the dissolution of all. And so the way that that can feel as we move through the week is kind of like, what's it all for? What am I really working for? What really matters, right? And I don't think that this is going to be the first week that people are going to be asking themselves questions like this. But I think that it is a week that lends itself to perhaps without a lack of awareness and presence, there can be this feeling of, I'm feeling a little lost and I don't even know why. Everything in my external reality is fine. I have everything I need. I have everything I wanted. But what is happening that I feel unsettled or I feel like there's something more? I can't put my finger on it. And so different people move through that type of energy in different ways. And I wanted to start the video off with that because I think it's an important thing to keep in mind, right? I think if you have the ability to have that much spaciousness within you, if you have the ability to have that much compassion within you, and if you don't, then that's not, again, there's no judgment and that's not a bad thing. But Pisces is the energy in the zodiac that reminds us of that. Then why not? Right? We're moving through times that are unprecedented in our lifetime. And all we really have to navigate it are esoteric tools that the society we live in really pushes up against very, very strongly. So it's an interesting dynamic where I feel that now more than ever, esoteric tools like tarot, like astrology, like numerology, like everything else that's out there can help explain what is seemingly unexplainable or inexplicable. I don't know. And it'll be interesting how there's even a growth in that, or who knows, people might lean more into it, right? Okay, so another thing that I want to share, which I'm so excited about, the Eclipse guide for the first eclipse season of 2025 is up $25 at astroconsciousness.com. I strongly suggest that you go and grab it, listen to, do a deep dive on the lessons. Um, I have a short guided daily meditation that I really invite you to tap into every single day, 10 minutes. 10 minutes, but I recorded that guided meditation specifically for the type of energy that we're going to be experiencing as of um, the last week of February when we have the new moon in Pisces, which is technically the beginning of eclipse season. I also do a deep dive into the Venus retrograde cycle and a deep dive into the Mercury retrograde cycle that is all taking place at the same time. In addition, which I'm so, so excited about, I have added a live Zoom call with me on Sunday, March 16th at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, only if you purchase the Eclipse Guide. So there's a ton of value for you there. I wanted to make it as accessible as possible for everyone because I think that this is an important time in our lives. And the more guidance and understanding we have from different perspectives, I think the more we can really equip ourselves to guiding and allowing ourselves to be guided, I should say, from a soul perspective and not just from the logical perspective. So, with that said, let's get started with the week ahead. Monday, February 17th, the moon is transiting the sign of Scorpio. Now, I found it important to point that out because anytime that the moon transits the sign of Scorpio, every single month, there is an intensity in what we are feeling and what we are processing. And we can go very deep, sometimes we can go very dark, but I think that the moon in Scorpio every single month also lends itself to really profound breakthroughs, assuming that we are in the space to say, this isn't happening to me, this is happening for me. What is it trying to teach me? And Scorpio is the depth psychologist of the zodiac, right? So if you're someone who works with a coach or works with a therapist, Monday and Tuesday are really great days to, have your sessions and do a deep dive into whatever is happening and set the intention of working with the energy of the full moon in Scorpio. Now, if that's not something that you do, this is really why I wanted to point out the moon transiting the sign of Scorpio. Over the weekend, right, February 15th and the 16th, we have the moon transiting the sign of Libra. And the moon transiting the sign of Libra is creating an opposition to Venus in Aries, particularly on the Saturday, February 15th. Here we have the moon in Libra, moon in the sign of relationships. This is how I feel, moon, about my relationship, Libra, in opposition to Venus and Aries. Venus in Aries is going to retrograde back into Pisces, then go back into Aries. So we want to pay attention. What are the conversations that we're having? What are the feelings that we're having about relationship, whether we are in one or have a desire to be in one? What are our intimate relationships telling us, right? Friendships, family relationships. Where are we in relationship dynamics that the moon in Libra is saying, this may be how I feel about relationships, whether I'm in one or not, romantic or not, but the Venus in Aries, excuse me, is saying, can a pattern or a behavior or a certain belief system continue to go with you in this journey of your life, right? So this is just something that you want to pay attention to. Take note to what happened over the weekend for you. Take note to how you might be processing whatever happened over the weekend on Monday and Tuesday with that moon in Scorpio, because the moon in Scorpio will help you feel into whatever you may have begun to pick up in relationship. If this has to do with professional relationships, if this has to do with the balance in your life, right? Take note to how that moon in Scorpio is allowing you to have different understanding, to have a different breakthrough of how you work from within, of how business relationships or friendships or certain support systems are allowing you to create a sense of harmony and balance within, hopefully, right? And if that's not the case, if you notice, these are not things that bring me a sense of peace, these are not things that bring me a sense of balance or harmony, what needs to change, right? And this is just to take note because this is just a moon moving through its cycle. Venus is going to still retrograde, but I think it's an important thing to note. Tuesday, February 18th, it is the beginning of Pisces season. Pisces season marks the end of an astrological year. It is an energy that, when used positively, when we are intentional with it, is incredibly creative. It is incredibly compassionate, healing. It is an energy that reminds us what happens of when I liberate myself and free myself of heaviness that I just don't want to carry in my heart and my soul. What happens when I let certain things just wash over me and allow them to be taken by the current of the cleansing metaphorical ocean, right? Pisces is such beautiful energy. And everything that we have been talking about the elevation of consciousness, about shifting the way that we see ourselves in the world, is only going to be amplified by this Pisces season that goes from February 18th into March, right? March 19th or 20th, and at which point we start the spring Aries equinox. I'm looking forward to this Pisces season. I think that if we feel we have had revelations and breakthroughs and downloads, thus far in 2025, this Pisces season lends itself to gifting us with so much as long as we do not lean into the lower expression of Pisces, which is addiction, disconnecting, dissociating, right? And when I say disconnecting, disconnecting not in the most positive way, ignoring that what we're being shown is exactly what we're being shown, right? Pisces energy or in Pisces season is not the excuse to not look at the things that are being shown to us. Instead, Pisces season is the invitation to say, how do I make peace with the truth of what has been shown to me, over the last 6 to 8 weeks and accept it for what it is, even if, even if it's not what I would like to see. It's not what I would like to be happening right now. Pisces is the sign that reminds us of the gift of surrender, and not because it means failure, but because our hearts and our souls get tired of our ego trying to force something to happen, something to work if it's not. So, this Pisces season is going to be incredibly revelatory if we let it. If we don't, we are going to feel overwhelmed. We are going to feel flooded. We are going to feel like we're drowning in the emotion of whatever it is that we are refusing to accept and let go. Okay. Um, Again, if you are a creative, if you want to lean into your creativity, if you're writing a book, if you create content, if you just want to journal, I just really invite you to, if you have the Eclipse guide, listen to that daily meditation and allow all of this creativity to flow through you. If you allow Pisces season to be a time of creativity, you're going to have such an amazing time with yourself, with your soul, with your higher self. That elevation of consciousness is truly going to flourish something within you, especially because it's leading us into eclipse season. And that's what eclipse season is all about. It's about saying what happens when my ego that is trying to control the outcome of something moves out of the way and I just allow my higher self to come through and work with the infinite, unconditionally loving energy of the universe. Ooh, so exciting. Not much happens on Wednesday, February 19th, but on Thursday, February 20th, we have Mercury in Pisces create a square to Jupiter in Gemini at 11 degrees. So, what does this mean? On the one hand, anytime we have a connection between Mercury and Jupiter, it's a lot of thoughts, it's a lot of ideas, it's a lot of communicating, it's on the one hand, it can be an incredibly creative day, creative time, beautiful for conversations. Even though it's a square, what I envision is like, say you're meeting with someone and you're putting your creative brains together, and it's like, oh, but what about this? And what about that? And oh my God, this is coming down to me right now, right? It's exciting. And if you are not working in this way with someone else, dreams, I think, will be at an all-time high. The intuition will be at an all-time high. But here's the thing. Anything that is at a square to Jupiter, it can always feel, it has this element of being too much of something. It has this element of potentially being overwhelming, right? So there can be an overwhelm of ideas, right? Or an overwhelm of I have so much to do and I don't know how to get to it. Okay. This is where you lean into the South Node in Virgo that is accompanying us, right, this entire time and saying, okay, what can I get to today? I have 20 ideas. Let me put them down on post-its and put them up on my wall, and I will handle one thing at a time, right? It can be a flood of dreams, of intuitive hits. Okay, I don't have to figure out what all of these dreams, what all of these intuitive hits are right now. Why don't I write them down on my journal, right? Kind of sort them out and allow time to show me what they mean. Because with the Jupiter and Gemini, it's like, well, what does it mean? What research do I have to do? How do I figure this out right now? Right. And Mercury in Pisces is saying, well, what if we don't figure it out right now? What if we just go with the flow? What if we just, continue just basking in the energy of all of this? It's beautiful energy that can feel contradicting. And I think that to our egoic self, especially if we are moving through a time where things feel out of our control and we're having a difficult time with that, going with the flow is the last thing you want to do right now. Accepting air quotes defeat perhaps is the last thing you want to do right now. Um, and just knowing, and I use that word defeat, it's probably a harsh word. I don't mean that, but I say it in that way because again, there are a lot of things with Pisces energy that clash against what the ego wants, what the ego had envisioned, what the ego is so stubbornly clinging onto. And so when we have an overwhelm of Pisces energy, it's like we're swimming upstream instead of going with the flow of the stream, right? And trusting that perhaps where the stream is taking us is easier and better than swimming upstream, right? Now, use that metaphor for if it fits for you. What do you feel you're swimming upstream in your life? And ask yourself a few things. Are you tired? Is it supportive? How long has this been going on? What would happen if you accepted the reality of what is being shown to you and simply let it go? Those are big questions to ask, right? But this is what we're moving into as we move closer and closer towards eclipse seasons. For those of you who have been with me long enough, and even longer than I've been on YouTube, you know that I'm huge on eclipse seasons because I think it's one of those things that is not talked about enough or just kind of like overridden on the surface. But it tends to be times in which people experience some of the most fundamental shifts and changes in their lives. And everyone's just left like, oh, I guess that was the eclipse. Instead, how are you being mindful with the questions that you're asking and actually understanding what the universe, what the cosmos, what spirit, what source is trying to communicate to you at this moment in time, right? So the square between Mercury and Jupiter in Gemini, be mindful that if you start feeling overwhelmed with trying to figure something out, with trying to do everything, that you come back to presence. And if it helps to make a list, if it helps to write things down, if it helps to ground, then lean into those tools because I do think that doing tangible things and certain exercises helps the egoic, very logical part of us say, okay, I'm doing something, right? But take it lightly, right? Another thing I'll say with this is that with so much Pisces energy in the air and the square between Mercury and Jupiter this week, be mindful of what you're consuming online. Be mindful of how much you're exposing yourself to the news. Be mindful of the conversations that you're having and, you know, just accepting anything as true. Be mindful. Take your time. Remember, the pause between the stimulus and the reaction is where power lies, right? So the pause between the stimulus of something you hear online, something you see on your phone, someone saying something, that pause is you taking your power back and saying, how does this really feel to me? What does it mean when I'm triggered? What is it bringing up in me? What is it teaching me? What is it showing me? It's interesting because Pisces energy, I think, is really going to amplify even more. Remember, Pisces is co-ruled by Jupiter and Neptune, right? So Neptune is boundless. Neptune doesn't have any boundaries, and Jupiter will expand, 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 expand anywhere where it doesn't have any boundaries. So while Pisces season, I think, can be really lovely, we are responsible for creating a grounded container so that we are not taken over by something that can actually be quite enlightening for us over the next couple of weeks. So this takes us into the weekend of February 21st through the 23rd. All right. So on Saturday, February 22nd, we have an exact conjunction between Neptune and the North Node and Pisces. I think that collectively speaking, from that point on, because it is such an important point, and over the next couple of weeks, and we'll see what happens beyond the next couple of weeks, beyond eclipse season and through the year, there's going to be a resurgence, I feel, of spirituality, potentially religion. So we'll see how people feel about that, right? Um, or the redefinition of religion in accordance to people's levels of consciousness at this moment in time. I think that the word religion brings up a lot of things for different people. I've worked with a lot of clients who have a lot of wounding and trauma around religion because of things that they experienced, right? And way too many times is religion associated with the connection to source or to God, right? And I think there's going to be a reclaiming of, no, this is what my connection to source, to light, to the universe, to God is to me. I mean, at least that's my hope, right? That this conjunction between Neptune and the North Node in Pisces is the openness and the growth of spirituality that says, I get to make it my own, right? And I don't have to follow a dogma that tells me that there is a spiteful God, right? So it'll be interesting what happens collectively in that space. I think it's also going to lend itself for us seeing news about religious institutions, right? We'll see what happens with that. But at a very personal level, this is such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful weekend for you to set time aside to be with yourself, to be with your soul, to be with your heart, for meditation, for journaling, right? Those of you with the Eclipse Guide, you have plenty of journal prompts that you don't have to wait for the eclipse season to start to kind of dive into. If anything, if you have the Eclipse Guide, I invite you that over this weekend, you answer some of those questions and compare the answers that you're putting in now in comparison to the end of eclipse season, which will be the second half of April. If you don't have the Eclipse Guide, I really invite you to sit with yourself. What's coming up? What needs healing? Where do you feel that you have forgotten yourself, right? What is your connection to source? What is your connection to your higher self? How is it that you're allowing your higher self to guide you at this moment in time? Are you practicing kindness and compassion to yourself? Are you in the space to practice kindness and compassion to others, right? There's a lot of questions right now that I feel that this conjunction between the North Node and Neptune and Pisces are going to incite that I really, really invite you to remember you don't have to have answers for right now. Because if there's anything that this North Node and Neptune conjunction in Pisces represents, is the dissolution of the ego that we have been holding on to because it has made us feel safe. And what this is giving us the opportunity to do is to get in touch with the truth of who we really are. And the truth of who we really are is light and unconditional love. But what the heck does that mean, right? I think that's the trajectory that we're being taken into and over the next 6 to 8 weeks. It's how do I know that I don't have to live this life, that I don't have to create anything purely from a place of grind and just this human doing the best it can and then burning itself out? How can I remember that I am a magical being that gets to manifest certain things while doing, the very human things while like showing up, like taking care of tasks and responsibilities. This is about the connection, the amalgamation, the and the visceral experience, the visceral understanding of the amalgamation of the ego and the soul, and how those two are meant to work together in every single day of our lives. That we don't have to go and sit on a mat to get in connection to ourselves. That can help. But what happens when we invite soul? in our every single day practice in anything that we do. Perhaps this is a weekend where you might feel a little emotional, or you might feel finally giving yourself the space of, okay, I'm just going to be with my feelings. I think that if you're spending time with someone else, you're going to have this really strong desire to be with someone who feels safe, who holds you in safe space and unconditional love. Sunday, February 23rd, Mars finally, finally stations direct in the sign of Cancer. I don't know if I've shared this before. I don't usually tend to have a problem with retrograde planets. It's just I've learned to work with them. They've always shown me and taught me something. But if there's one that I just do not like at all, no matter how much I meditate about it, no matter how much I try to accept it, is a Mars retrograde. Hate might be quite a strong word, but I strongly dislike Mars retrogrades. Now, with that said, Mars stationing direct, we have to be very mindful, okay? Remember what I mentioned a few minutes ago. This is a time in which people, if they don't have a spiritual practice to lean into, or at the very least, a different knowledge beyond the 3D to lean into, they can feel very disoriented and not understand why. And there's nothing more frustrating than feeling like I feel off and I don't understand why, right? Mars stationing direct, if this energy is not integrated, we can feel very restless. We can feel very impatient and very impulsive. So I would not be surprised if between the conjunction of the North Node and Neptune in Pisces, which is very emotional, which has no sense of clear direction, and Mars stationing direct saying, all right, let's go, and then being like, okay, but where, right? It can feel like contradicting energies, right? So be mindful of that, especially if you're dealing with others. Within yourself, I think that if you're listening to this and if you've been listening to me or any other astrologer, you probably lean into other esoteric practices, spiritual practices, knowledge, right? You might feel all of this, and the invitation is, how am I with this? Whether it's a beautiful, euphoric kind of experience, how can I allow myself to have it? Or if it feels like a disorienting, uncomfortable feeling that I can't put my finger on, how can you sit with it and hold it no matter what it is without judgment? How can you just be with what is? And that can feel kind of annoying to some people. What do you mean be with it, with what is? I mean exactly that. How can you sit and be with what is without trying to fix it, without trying to understand it, without trying to find how to figure it out, how to find fault? How can you be with what is and allow something else to come through that might be the answer and the guidance that you're actually seeking at this moment in time? Really, really important questions. And I think every season has its purpose, right? There are seasons to take action, there are seasons to materialize, there are seasons to make money. This is a season of practicing how to be with what is, so that we can be guided by our higher self, so that we can be guided by that which we can't see and understand what that actually means in our body. So Mars stationing direct, I think that it's actually going to, especially the following week, I think it's going to lend itself for certain things to move forward for certain people, especially if you've been feeling stuck in some way, shape, or form since around October, right? I think it will manifest it will manifest certain opportunities, a different level of energy within you, and yet still holding space for what is at the present moment in time. Okay. Um, I hope that this is helpful. I'm really looking forward to the week ahead. Another thing I wanted to share with you is that um, a few days ago, it was the 1 year anniversary of the Astro Consciousness YouTube channel. Yay! Um, it's been such a pleasure to be here for a year, um, recording these videos week after week. It's been something that I've been devoted to that has given me a lot of confidence in myself. Um, I have I have been thinking about a YouTube channel for a long time, like 7 years. And I started something about 7 or 8 years ago, I think, and stopped because I got scared. Um, and so last year, February of 2024, during Pisces season, I said, you know what? I'm going to take this leap of faith. I'm going to lean into this and see where it goes. And it's been so beautiful to connect with people on YouTube, um, and to just feel much more into my interpretation of astrology, which I think is much more of a tool and a guide for our soul's evolution beyond anything else. So thank you to all of you who have joined me in the last year, for anyone who's new. And as always, may this be of service. Thank you all so much. Much love, and I'll talk to you next week.